Alright, everybody, we're hopping into a post-8th anniversary top 10 LRs in Dokkan. It's been a while since I've done one of these. I don't remember when the last one I did was, but figured I would do one of these. I think I did a Dokkan Fest LR tier list. Let me know if I didn't. They're somewhere on the channel. I don't know. Just, if you go to my actual channel page and you click the little search bar on my channel, it'll let you search within my channel. So let me know if I've done one of these before. Then you can compare and see how my opinions have changed a little bit over time. But so the way I like to do tier list is that generally what I like to do is I like to have a definitive number one. That like stands out above everybody else that I can just say like confidently is number one in the game. But I was not able to do that this time. But what the color coding on the side indicates tiers. That means that I can see like if a character's at 9 and you wanted to say, oh, I think they're at 5. Well, yeah, I agree. Like I think you can reshuffle the order of these any way you want. So you can see I kind of have 3 tiers going here. Instead of having a definitive number 1, I think I have a definitive number 10 that I just can't quite put on the other tiers. And it's not because he's bad or anything. It's just because, like, I don't know. It's just I'm either not using him as much these days, or there's just like better options. It was just one of those things where I was like, I feel like I got 1, 2, 3, 4. I went boom, 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 boom. And then I did like 5, 6, and I was gonna make 5, 6 their own tier. I really thought about 5 and 6 like being their own tier for a long time, and I made the decide to shift it up on the fly here as we talk about things. But let's go ahead and get started. Number 10 is going to be Tech Carnival Goku. Let me go ahead and pull up his details. All right, so Tech Carnival Goku. This guy is almost a year old now. Came out on August 28th of 2022. Be on the lookout for around August 28th this year. We'll be getting, the new worldwide celebration units. That's where this guy came out last year alongside STR Cooler. And this guy's aged really well. Turns out whenever you put stacking, defense on a character, and guard, turns out they last a long time in the meta. I really struggled putting this guy at level 10, or at rank 10, just because he's really good. But I will say he does have some flaws. And, we have several revival characters now. So this guy, right, he guards all attacks when HP is 60% or more. Whenever you fall below that, you get his revive, or you get a chance to revive, okay? And there, if you get his revive, then he guards for the rest of battle, and he gets all this, right? So, I mean, it's good, like, if you can revive. And whenever he came out, he was pretty much, like, the only relevant revival character, so this was not a big deal. But now we have several other revival characters that are just competing for this revive. And this guy does not have the good condition like Tech 23rd World Tournament Goku, where Tech 23rd World Tournament Goku, if anybody revives, he gets his special passive. And if this guy doesn't have his guard, he can be prone to taking damage. Now, I will say I've been in situations where I've thought I'm going to put him in front of attacks that are going to kill him, and he ends up, like, he takes a ton of damage from the first normal because he gets a buff whenever he gets hit. Right here, he gets this extra defense whenever he gets hit. I've had times where I put him in front of, like, 3 attacks or something, and I expect him to die in front of those attacks. And I put him in front of them, he takes the first one, it gets me down to, like, 5% HP remaining, and then he takes double digits on the other 2, and I don't die, and I'm like, hello? I've had that happen several times with this guy, and I'm not really holding it against him. That's just a couple situations this guy has, put me in, or a couple times this guy has put me in bad situations. So, I mean, there is that. But, I mean, overall, this is a fantastic unit. His leader skill definitely is not very great. You really don't want to run 2 of these guys for the aforementioned reason down here. This guy only gets his guard whenever he revives. So if you have 2 of these on the team and one of them revives, the other one's not going to be able to get their permanent guard. So you have to constantly be watching your HP. So I did take off some points for leader skill. I probably value leader skill more than a lot of people, and that'll show once we get kind of towards the upper ranks. But yeah, this guy is great. So, I mean, he comes in at number 10. So that's where we have him. Coming in at number 9. Let's see who we got here now. Keep in mind, 9 through 5, I can swap these out anywhere. But whenever I was making this list, this is just what happened. And people aren't going to like this. This is going to ruffle feathers. I can already tell I'm about to do something. It's going to make people mad. Like, we're considering all the fights in the game, including JP. This does include JP characters. Again, I have used all of these characters on the list, including this guy. I have videos on the channel of this guy if you don't think so. So I have every LR here. I have used them all extensively. Number 9, we're putting the blue fusion. Listen, that just made people mad. But we're putting them down here. And again, I could see them at 5. The reason I'm putting them down here is a couple reasons. One is their leader skill. Let me go ahead and get, we'll just pull up like Vegeta. Both of them are essentially the same. That's why they're in the same tier. I'm cheating a little bit here. Forgive me. They're basically the same unit. All right, so we've got Vegeta pulled up here. Now, I'll say in base form, these guys are definitely like weaker than most other characters on the list. But they do have one strength in that they do get dodge in slot 3. And that's kind of their intended use, right? Is that you put them in slot 3, they float off, and then you come back and you get the turn of guaranteed dodging, and they're just great, right? Well, in the Omega fight, these guys definitely got hurt by the Omega fight. I don't have any showcases out of it on the channel, but you can go find other JP YouTubers who have, extensive showcases in these fights, like Minato, Truth. Minato's putting out like 8 showcases a day with like 1 million units, so go check out him in his showcases if you want to see like just 1 million different units against that Omega fight. And these guys can do well in there, but I will say is you're going to burn that turn of guaranteed dodging really fast. You could even still be in the tech phase with that turn of guaranteed dodging, and that they get whenever they go blue. And that really hurts them. You need this. Basically, the way you want to use this, I just recorded Metal Cooler Core showcases today. Those should already be out on the channel. Check those out if you haven't seen them. But we get to the core on turn 4, right? We get the turn of guaranteed dodging. We dodge the super attack. We do like a third or so of his health, right, on the first turn. The other rotation gets us down below 50% HP. We survive. We come back onto the rotation, and now they have their active skill. You put them in slot 3. They activate their active skill. You put them in slot 1. They get the full effect of this right here. Whenever they're in slot 3, they get 7 ki. They both get this exact same effect, a guaranteed additional and a 70% chance of dodging when you attack in slot 3. So their strength is going to also be their weakness. We'll talk about that in a second. But you pop this in slot 3, you get that 70% chance to dodge, you move them over into slot 1, and then that also activates all of this, so they have a 70% chance to dodge, 12 ki, and then just like 1 million super attacks coming in, right? And then nothing survives that. That's kind of the intended strategy, right? But if you're not getting that on the final phase, then you can be in a little bit of trouble sometimes with these guys. I will say there have been turns where I get to turn, we transform on turn 4, and then I get to turn 6. This happens more on my JP account where they're not rainbowed and all of my units aren't rainbowed. So I do kind of have like a variance. Like I'm not just grading all of these guys at their performance at rainbow. Like I have an idea in my mind of, how do they perform at 55% versus how do they perform at the rainbow level. And, in both cases, there have been times where we're not in the final phase. You guys, I don't know if you watched it or not, but I have my Gogeta versus Broly showcase up on the channel, and that was a mess. I mean, Broly just kept catching Gogeta, because if you either can't dodge or, he's just able to catch you on a turn where, you can't get him into slot 3 or there's AoEs or things like that. These guys defensively at the start of turn, they're only at about 400, 80-ish K to maybe like 500K defense at the start of turn, which is okay, but it's not, super fantastic. So they can get caught by AoEs, and I've just had turns before where I've had them get caught. I mean, they're fantastic units. They're great units. Again, I can see them up as high as 5. If you wanted to say, no, these guys are 5, listen, I get it. These are fantastic units, but one, they're not leaders, which I do think is an issue. I mean, they do have set 170% to stats, but Potara is not great, and if you're running Final Trump Card, you might as well just run the 200% lead of the Boo Duo. But it is what it is, right? That's just where they landed. I pretty confidently ranked 1 through 8, and I was like, wait, where are the blue fusions? And I realized I hadn't put them on the list, and it's just because I feel a lot more comfortable with all the units above them. But again, they are in the same tier, so if you wanted to scoot them up, I wouldn't argue with you. There's just, especially in 5, 6, and 7, there's just a lot more that I value with what they do that I can't say for these guys. these guys are not slot 1 units, which in my rankings, they're not good leaders, and they're not slot 1 units, which for me, it does play a big impact in my rankings. So I have them at 9. They do a billion damage, and they can be slot 1 units for like 2 turns. You know, the turn you use their active skill and on turn 4 if you can dodge. Oh, why is my desktop audio suddenly so loud? Hang on. Sorry about that. I don't know why it suddenly just got like a million times louder. Hopefully it hasn't been too loud for too long. I'm sorry if it has. I'll throw this into Adobe and adjust that hopefully. But, well, I don't know if I'll be able to. Crap. Okay, well, I don't know how long you haven't been able to hear me. I'm sorry. Hopefully it's fixed now. Again, I don't know why it does that. Anyway. But yeah, number 9. So number 8, next up. Again, this was pretty low, but we have Kid Gohan. I really like Kid Gohan. This unit is fantastic. I felt like every time I was hopping into one of his showcases on his team, I just felt like we were going to win. I mean, I was just like, all right, we got a really tight team here. You know, it's just running him, basically, and like this guy, an Orange Piccolo, an STR Piccolo, Physical Piccolo. I just felt like we could go into any event, and we had the tools necessary to win. And I really like that. You know, he leads Bond to Master and Disciple, which is a pretty solid team. It's a really tight team, too. And I think, you know, a lot of it is helped out by how good Orange Piccolo is. You know, spoiler alert, Orange Piccolo's up here. Somewhere in this red zone, right? But, no pun intended there. But, you know, puns are good. But yeah, Gohan, I like running his team. Let me go ahead and get his details pulled up. So we got Gohan here. He does stack defense, and he stacks it a little bit faster whenever you get his unit super, which is really easy to get. I mean, you just need a Goku, a Krillin, a Yamcha Tien, or a Piccolo, which you are probably going to have running his team. He's also on a couple other teams. He only has 200%, but, you know, he does have several categories that puts him on just like other teams. So, you know, you could run him on, like, Yamcha's team, or just, like, a Goku family team. Bond to Parent and Child, you can run him on Vegeta and Trunks' team. As long as he's able to kind of comfortably sit in slot 2, that's kind of the reason why he's down so low, is he's a slot 2 unit. You're not really ever going to be in a situation where you can put him in slot 1, unless you know that the super attack is not in slot 1. This guy can tank normals just fine from pretty much anybody. That's not going to be an issue. His issue is going to arise from super attacks, because he gets his main defense right here. When he attacks an enemy with an ultra super attack, he gets 30% damage reduction against that enemy. Which also means that against 2 enemies, you got to be a little bit careful, because he's only going to have the 30% damage reduction against one of them. So, you know, if you pick the wrong one and the other one supers you, then you could be in trouble just a little bit. But again, this guy can get to really high defensive stats. I like him a lot. I think he's a solid leader. He's not like a super crazy leader, but it's a very tight team, and he's just a very good character. So I really like Gohan there. Again, this next one is going to ruffle some feathers, I think, but again, you know, 5 through 9 is pretty fluid. You can just kind of flow these guys wherever you see fit. Honestly, I could probably make this blue as well, but I think they really are a step up from this guy. And since I think all these other characters are better than them too, I was just like, okay, this guy has to be in his own tier. But next up, number 7, we have the Boo Duo. Fantastic unit, great unit. They can get caught. They do have a fatal flaw in that, you know, they are not impervious to damage until they stand by. And sometimes getting their standby out can be an issue, you know. I feel like, the worst luck in the world with their 70% chance to be a super attack. Let me get that pulled up. Okay, right, where is it? Right here. I feel like I have the worst luck in the world with this, on both characters, really, on the GT Duo and the Z Duo, but on these guys, it just feels so much worse, because they need to do attacks to get into their standby. Essentially, on their first turn, you need them to have a perfect turn, otherwise you could be in trouble. If they only get 3 super attacks or less on their first turn, you can have issues with this character. You know, I think about a lot of fights, you know, like the Metal Cooler core, for instance. You know, you need to be built up quick defensively before you get to that core, because if the core just decides to super them, they have no survivability in this form. Like, in this Super Saiyan 3, Super Saiyan 2 form, they have no survivability until, like, I don't know, 7 turns deep into the fight, whenever they've done, like, 10 super attacks or something like that. That's whenever it's like, oh, okay, they've got like a million defense, and, you know, they look great. But even with a million defense, you're still prone to getting caught. But hopefully by then, you at least have the standby. The standby is what saves this unit. Like, from being in the top 10. Like, if this unit was just this, I don't know if they make the top. They probably do make the top 10. They would probably just be like 10. Because I think I would just like this base form better than every other character down here. Just taking a quick glance at it. It might be tough. It might be tough between, like, Gohan here. Like, I would really have to think about, do I like what Gohan is doing more than them? Because, like, you know, they're both kind of defensive stackers, but at least Gohan has the guard, right? To kind of separate him above. So it would be a real struggle for me to maybe even get them in the top 10 if they didn't have their standby. That being said, their standby is insane. You get this standby of base Goku and Vegeta out, and, I mean, they can't take damage. They're rainbow orb changing, and then eventually they're going to drop this giant nuke spirit bomb, which is going to do like 20 million to 50 million of the enemy's HP. This is supremely powerful, and this is what really pushes them into being a special unit to me. And it's why if someone said I wanted to see them at number 5, I would, you know, absolutely agree. They are a fantastic unit. My only issue is that, you know, again, they're not a slot 1 character, just like these guys all right here, this little grouping. This is kind of why I wanted to make them their own tier, is because none of these characters are really slot 1. They can be, which is kind of why I made this all blue, because it's like, you know, if someone wanted to say, you know, like, I wanted to, you know, replace these guys or something like that, like swap them, I could see it. And honestly, I could see, and then I was just like, well, I could see them being as high as 5. Like, if someone wanted to say, I think they're better than the unit I have in 5, it's like, oh, well, I can see it, because in a lot of the game right now, these guys are just going to absolutely dominate it. You know, the character I'm putting in 5 is just because of their consistency, but, like, it was really close. I may still do this. Like, do this. Right here. In fact, I think I'm going to. I'm going to make an executive decision on the fly, and we're going to make 5 and 6. It's 5 and 6 its own tier. I'm going to go ahead and grab both of these units at once. There we go. Now, this is tough. Like, that's why I was sitting here before I started recording this video just doing this. I was like, I don't know. I almost just did this and made it their own tier and scooted everybody up and then, like, added Gohan to the list or something like that. but I didn't. I did this. The reason I went with Vegeta and Trunks in slot 1, this is so hard. I'm just going to talk about it. I'm not going to pull up their card. You should just take my word for it. The reason I put them in slot 1 is because they can handle slot 1 in every event in the game. They can take some damage. You know, they can take a little bit, depending on how many stacks you get, linking partners, things like that, you know, just how the fight goes. But they will always have guard in slot 1, if you're running them, like, correctly. I think they just always have guard in slot 1, right? Even after their intro wears out. Which is what pushes them above this character for me. This character is so good. I love this AGL Goku. You guys know, it's like, if I can put him on the team, I do it. I have him built full dodge. He's a great character. But his damage is pretty good once you get his full hits in, you know, which is nice, but it's like he can eventually hit harder than, I guess, Vegeta and Trunks on average, I think, because, you know, he'll be shooting at, like, just like a 12 million attack stat. That's usually all he does, though. He doesn't have any built-in crits, whereas Vegeta and Trunks, they may be shooting like a, you know, 5 to 6 million attack stat, but they do have, like, that built-in 35% chance to crit. But this Goku eventually loses his guard. He'll end up somewhere around like 1 million defense, which is good. You know, I like 1 million defense. 1 million defense is great, but it's usually not enough to survive these big boss super attacks. Whereas Vegeta and Trunks, you know, they may only be sitting at like 500 to 600k defense, depending on how the fight's going, you know, maybe 400k, 450, somewhere in there, right? But they'll have their guard up in slot 1, which is where you need them to have guard. At some point, this character, he can be a slot 1 unit for 6 turns. That's 3 rotations, essentially. That is fantastic. There are some fights that go longer than 6 turns now, specifically Omega. And I think, I mean, their issue against Omega is that they're int. Like, these characters both have issues against Omega, but this character will always be guarding against Omega, whereas this guy will lose it. But this guy does have the mid-battle heal, which can be extremely helpful. But then they have the active skill that can raise your allies' defense by, what is it, like 30% for 1 turn, which can be really good. And, you know, it's just good damage. It gives them guaranteed crits for the turn, right? So, their leader skill is also better, just because it's bond to parent and child and future. whereas this guy's just Turtle School. For the most part, actually, I think all of the Goku units are on Bond of Parent and Child. So really, like, the only thing Goku has over this guy is maybe, like, Master Roshi and Yamcha and, like, Krillin. Some of the Krillins, depending on, you know, depending on if it's, like, Super Krillin or not, but we don't really have many Super Krillins at the moment. Sorry, I had to get a drink there. But it's just, it's really close between these two. It's like, okay, I probably like their leader skill better. But, you know, this guy's heal is really good, and, you know, he can get some pretty good raw stats, and I don't know. But really what kept it for me, like, why I put them at 5 is their guard staying up. Basically, like, you can have their guard the entire fight. You know, they'll probably end up taking more damage than this guy, but if this guy's guard wears off, they're going to take less damage, like, no matter what, right? So that's just the way I view it. I figured, you know, 500k defense with guard, I like that better than just like a million raw defense. So that's kind of the decision here. That's ultimately the breakdown. There's so much back and forth between these two units that it was really tough for me to pick like one over the other, which is why I have them in 5 or 6. And it's just because, you know, these guys do have slot 1 viability, which is what makes me put them over these guys. You know, these two can have slot 1 viability for 2 turns out of the fight, which is why I could do this. Like, honestly, I could do this, and I would be pretty happy with it. I'm going to leave this like this for now, and just see if I like this. You know, we'll look at it at the end. We'll leave it like this for now. But, yeah, these units just having that slot 1 viability, a ton of defense. This guy just has so much tech. You know, you can get the guaranteed crits with his active skill. The active skill itself won't do much damage, but then, you know, he can shoot out like a 12 million attack stat with a guaranteed crit if you have him fully built up. So, the heal, the crit, I mean, these are 2 great units, but the slot 1 viability is what's really putting them over these guys for me. So, and then also they're just better turn 1. These guys turn 1 can be a little suspect. You know, the idea is that you dodge them, but, you know, at some point that may come to haunt them. We will see, but I like this. This makes me happy, actually. It's weird to see them at 8, but I do like this. So it's weird to see him at 9, but I don't know. Their standby is just really good. So again, these are fluid. You can just shuffle these around however you want, and I probably won't argue with you too much. And even if you wanted to kind of say, I don't know, like you wanted to kind of move these guys up a tier or 2, it's like I wouldn't get too much into the nitty gritty. I would just like to agree on who the top 10 are. We can, you know, argue about order all day, but if we can just get like a consistent top 10, I think that would be good in the community. All right, we're moving into the big boys. We're moving into the big boys. I'm just gonna go ahead and fill all of these in. In slot 4, we have Super Saiyan 4 Goku. In slot 3, Honeymane is already screaming at me. We have Orange Piccolo. Slot 2, we have Bulma, and then in slot 1, where are they? We have them. All right, now somebody's yelling at me for Bulma not being at number 1. Let me explain. It ultimately comes down to leader skill. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at this top 10 real quick. How many of these top 10 characters are on this guy's leader skill? This one, not him, but this guy is. They are. Not him. And then I don't think he is. So this entire row is on this guy's leader skill. That's why they're number 1 for me. I think all 3 of these characters, really all 4 of these characters, the reason these 3 are number 3 is because I think all 3 of these characters just bring so much value to your team that they just really stand above. Super Saiyan 4 Goku is insane. The only reason he's not higher on the list is I think the only fight where you get to really see his true potential is Omega. Omega is like the only boss that can just handle this guy and do enough attacks and everything to get like full power Super Saiyan 4 Goku out and like the boss not have a centimeter of HP left. I feel like before that Omega fight dropped, every showcase I was seeing with full power Super Saiyan 4 Goku, it was like, all right, guys, we're finally going to transform into full power Super Saiyan 4 Goku. And like the Metal Cooler Core or, you know, Cell Max, the Gammas, whoever, have like a centimeter of HP left. Like you look up at the bar and it's like half of the last health bar is left. And it's like, oh boy, we're getting him, you know? Like fights weren't designed with him in mind. Like, I mean, that's good, right? But you know, a lot of these other characters just bring a lot of value to protect your other characters, and I like to see the full potential of a unit, and I wasn't really getting to see that with this guy, and it was like a little bit hard to kind of transform depending on the boss that you were going up against. So that's just kind of why he's in 4, is just because like the only fight where you get to really see his true potential right now is the Super Saiyan 4 Goku fight, or I'm sorry, the Omega Shinron fight, not, which obviously is designed directly around him. And then another thing too is that once you get him in the full power Super Saiyan 4, he's insane. I mean, he does like guard, damage reduction, and he does like guaranteed crits. But he kind of just like does a 20 million attack stat, and then he does like a crit, and then he's just kind of like done. which is fine, but I kind of like additionals or you know, something else going on with that. Like he kind of just shows up, drops that, and leaves, which is cool. But that's kind of like all he does once he gets into Super Saiyan 4. So, you know, I mean, he's right here next to Orange Piccolo. Orange Piccolo kind of does the same, but these three just have a ton of intangible value that they bring to your team. So this unit, obviously, they bring the Revive, which is incredible. So they're bringing the leader skill first of all. So you can get their leader skill, and you can run like, you know, most of the top 10 LRs in the game on their leader skill, which is insane. Number 2 is they have the Revive. And then in the Revive, they also have support, which is incredible. You know, like, what is it, 8 key and 80% attack support? You can line that up and really juice up some characters. I mean, you get this guy and in their support phase next to this guy, and, you know, you're going to do a 20 million crit with, or not even 20, you're going to do like a 30, 40 million crit with this guy or something like that. And then Vegeta's going to drop like a 15, 16, 17 million attack stat, and then he's going to get KO'd and then drop the Spirit Bomb. And if anything survived after that, you got to send it to me, because I don't know what is surviving a turn of like these two together, right? That support is just so nasty. It can like juice up their Spirit Bomb. It can make their active skills look insane. I mean, this support that they give whenever, right before they die and revive, is just insane. And then they do die and revive, and you know, it does that huge attack, does a ton of damage, and then it gives you a full heal. There's been several times where it's like, all right, you know, we got knocked down below 50% super early. I need to use their Revive just to get us the heal back. And then there are some characters now, specifically 23rd World Tournament Goku, where you're incentivized to revive pretty early. This unit helps out 23rd World Tournament Goku tremendously. And the fact that you can just revive, they have a really, really good revive condition. It's either get hit 4 times or fall below 50% HP. I really hate whenever they throw "and" conditions on units. Like, if this was get hit 4 times and fall below 50% HP, I would hate it. But because it's "or," you can get it immediately as soon as you enter a fight, which is super nice, because then it's like, all right, you know, we got blasted away on turn 1. We got a really unlucky rotation. You know, here pretty soon, the red zone is going to go back to the daily limits. And we're not just going to be able to go in and, you know, just bang our heads against the wall trying to defeat it. And we're going to go back to those limits. And so whenever you hop in, you get a really bogey rotation, take a ton of damage, and then you get to turn 2 with this guy, and they just can give you that reset to help you get your, you know, 1, you get the full heal, you can try to get your rotations more in check, and you just kind of get a reset. It's just super helpful. And then they themselves are a great unit. You know, I'm not worried about them whenever they're not in their standby phase. Like this unit, I feel like it's a race to get to their standby so that I'm like safe with them. This unit, I never feel like I'm in a race to get to their standby, because they build up that 50% damage reduction. So every super attack they do, you know, they get 10% damage reduction. And also, the only reason I'm not pulling up like some of these characters is because I use them a lot. So I feel like I've shown their details, or at least we know what they do, or I know them enough to talk about them. Some of these other characters, I just wanted to pull them up for reference. Like, especially this guy, I haven't used him in forever. I mean, I used him in, like, Gogeta's showcase recently, but I don't use him much, so some of these I like to pull up just for reference, or if I'm making a specific reference to something, you know, I like to pull that up. And then again, if, like, this guy misses a super attack, it's not the end of the world. They'll lose a 1-turn defense raise and attack stat, and then, like, 10% damage reduction. But, you know, most of the time I feel like I'm seeing them do 3 super attacks on their first turn, which gets them 30% damage reduction. Quite a bit of defense, and I find them to be very consistent in their performance. You know, I've talked this entire list about how I really value slot 1 units, and this unit isn't really a slot 1 unit, but they can be. They can fill that role if you need them to, depending on the type advantage in the fight. It depends, you know, but they can hold that slot down if you need them to. That would be one thing that Bulma has over them that like, if you wanted to do this, if you want to put Bulma here, that's fine. The reason I have them at number 1 is just because of how good their leader skill is. It's like, I don't need them to be a slot 1 unit because I can bring her and she's the slot 1 unit, or I can bring them and they're the slot 1 unit, or I can bring him and he's the slot 1 unit for 6 turns. So it's like, I don't really need to worry about a slot 1 unit. A lot of the times whenever I'm bringing a 200% leader, I need them to be a slot 1 unit because I'm going to have 2 of them. And I don't want to, like, I don't want to have to worry about having 2 of them end up on a rotation together because I'm floating them, and it's like, well, we need to float a different unit or something like that. On this team, it's like, okay, I can fill the team up with other slot 1 units, and then I can float them or leave them in slot 2 or whatever, and they can just sit there and be fine. If I need to put them in the slot 1 for whatever reason, I can. And if anything, hopefully I have the revive whenever I have to do it. And if it's, worst case scenario, we can just, get KO'd and revive. And just, whatever reason I had to put them in slot 1, hopefully it's alleviated by the time we come back around. So, it kind of seems odd to have a unit that can't go in slot 1 as your number 1 unit. But really, to me, I see all 3 of these as providing a ton of intangible value. I mean, Bulma's a must-run. If you have Bulma and you're running a team with Bulma on it, she is a must-run. I do think her defense is slightly overrated by the community, just a little bit. I'm not saying a lot, just a little bit. It's slightly overrated. They act like she takes double digits from everything, always, right? But that's not true, but that's why you also give her a full dodge build, okay? You give Bulma full dodge. But her support is just insane. 3 key and like 30-something% attack and defense to all allies for 2 turns is incredible. And she's a rainbow orb changer, and she's guarding, and she's building up damage reduction, and she has built-in crit. I mean, she is a jack of all trades. The only reason she is not number 1 is her leader skill. I cannot put her at number 1 because then it's like, okay, players should summon for her over this unit, kind of is what I would think if I did that. And while true, if you just summon for Bulma and, like, not this character, like, let's say there were 2 options, right? And you could start your account and you could pick this unit or you could pick Bulma. Both would be great choices, but this unit would be able to let you build a team faster than this unit. It's kind of like the only thing that would keep me from putting Bulma here, just because she has a yellow coin LR leader skill. Now, if they had given her, like, Dragon Ball Saga 200% to stats or something like that, I would absolutely do this. Even though Dragon Ball Saga is not super crazy, just the fact that she would have a competent leader skill, it would put her above. But, I mean, look how valuable this guy's leader skill is. Again, 8 of the top 10 units are on this guy's leader skill. That is so good. So I have to put him at number 1. And then Orange Piccolo, I haven't talked about him much. But Orange Piccolo is really solid. I actually think, like, these 2 as a rotation, you put her in slot 1, and she has guard, and she creates rainbow orbs and has damage reduction, and then you put him in slot 2, and they share, like, Brainiac, solid support, fierce battle, legendary power. And then he can just sit in slot 2 and super attack very easily. And then whenever, she's giving the 3 key support from whenever she collects 5 orbs, and then he gives 2 key support whenever he gets hit, so then the unit in the 3rd rotation is just never suffering for key, no matter who it is, because they're giving 5 key support between them to this other unit. It's just so good, right? So it's like, you can run them as a rotation. It's like, oh no, well, what if I have this unit? Well, you wouldn't have that unit floating. What if I have this guy floating, right? Like, they don't link together at all. Well, they're going to give this guy 5 key support, and then he builds up key on his own, so it's never an issue running these guys as a rotation. Again, like on this guy's team. And then you just run them as a floater, and then you have this floating support unit. Well, they can be a support unit, but you have this floating unit with 50% damage reduction that can, give you a revive whenever you need it, so... Orange Piccolo, the reason he's above this guy ultimately is his ability to cancel boss super attacks and AoEs and just general abilities. If you guys didn't know, whenever you use a giant form, whenever it keeps the turn counter, it like locks it, right? So that the turn stays the same, so whatever your turn you used it on, it just stays that turn no matter what. So if the boss, can double super and heal and do AoEs, if you get them to burn all of their abilities while they are in your giant, or while you are in your giant form, then they can't do those once you come out of the giant form because it's still the same turn, and they're limited to the amount of times that they can do those, abilities per turn. So if they've already burned all their supers, they've burned their AoEs, and they've burned their, heal or whatever they may have, then, you know, you just get out of that and you have a free turn, basically. So, Orange Piccolo can provide that. So if you're running like a double Orange Piccolo team, you basically have 2 free turns in your back pocket. Plus, depending on the typing of the boss, you can do a ton of damage as well. So that's kind of why I have him at 3. He leads a really good team too. The only reason Bulma's ahead of him, you know, I talked about leader skill, and that's why this guy's ahead. This guy does have a really good leader skill too with superheroes and Battle of Wits. But just looking at that right, this unit is on that team. This guy's on the team. Okay, so both of these guys are on the team. This guy's on the team. I think they're on the team. And that's it from, like, this top 10 list, right? Which is fine. I mean, he's got, like, the Gammas on there as well. And there's plenty of good units on superheroes and Battle of Wits. But, you know, his leader skill is just not quite as strong, I think, as theirs right now. Power of Wishes plus Battle of Fate is just too good at the moment. I mean, they also have, you know, this is just LRs, but he also has the 23rd World Tournament Goku, the Piccolo Jr., the Physical God Goku on the team, who are all, like, top 10 LRs, so I just could not, like, their leader skill is just too good at the moment. I mean, it's actually probably the best leader skill in the game. I can't think of one that's better. And then Bulma is just, like, the second best, like, honestly, if you want to do this, I mean, again, this is red. You could swap these all around. I wouldn't really argue. I thought about putting this guy in his own tier, but listen, this guy can be that guy. You know, he's like a better version of them, essentially. They strive to be this guy. Another thing that devalues them as well is you can only use one of these. So each, like, right now we only have 2 types of standbys. We have revive standbys, and then we have, like, these charge standbys. You can only use one of each at a time. So you can use, like, one revive and one charge. Like, you can use both of these at the same time. But you cannot use, like, this guy. These are both charge standbys. You can't use both at the same time. And if I have a choice to use this guy and get, like, Big Daddy out, or, you know, use them, I mean, I might choose them just because they suck, but, you know, I want to get this guy out, so I'd probably, you know, pick him, so I don't know. Let me know what you guys think about this top 10 list. Let me know if I'm an idiot, you know, let me know if this is just the horrible list, worst list you've ever seen. Again, you can swap these around in the tiers, and you're not going to bother me too much. And also, I'm pretty lenient. I'm not going to tell you you're an idiot if, you know, you have basically the same top 10 as me, but they're just kind of reshuffled around. But I do think that this is the top 10 in the game at the moment. And then we just have some other units down here. Truth made this list back whenever he did his, whenever, like, this guy came out. Some honorable mentions. Gohan was pretty close to making the list, but, you know, I find Tech Carnival Goku's guard to just be more consistent and his defense to be better most of the time. But like, this Gohan is really good. You know, if you wanted to do this, again, that's fine. AGL Golden Frieza is pretty good, but his damage reduction wears off pretty quickly, and then he's kind of a sitting duck, but he is still one of the best tanks on villain teams, and he's on a couple superclass teams and can be solid. This guy's okay, but his defense is never what I want it to be. They're like a better version of Cooler and Ultimate Gohan. They're pretty solid, but, you know, I don't really care for them too much. I just don't really find the need to run them. This guy has key issues. If you guys have watched many of my videos, you know I have, like, a vendetta against this guy. He sucks. I mean, he doesn't suck, but he sucks, you know what I mean? 7th Anniversary LRs, I actually would like them over Cooler, just because, I don't know. They both have really good linking partners, and I can just run them on superclass teams, and superclass teams are always good, and they just work well as floaters, and Cooler just is, you know, he's meant to be, like, the best villain unit out there, and, you know, it's a little spooky for this guy. He heavily relies on RNG, and if you're just getting, you know, one super and a bunch of normals, you know, he's not that guy. This unit's really inconsistent, but, I mean, they're fun. It's tough between these two, who I would put as higher. I don't know. It just depends on the day. I am inclined to like superclass units better, just because they're always going to have better setups. Cell's okay, but he doesn't really have a team. This Metal Cooler's a fraud. And then the rest of this doesn't really matter, but just some other units. Like, this Boo's pretty good, but he's waiting on a team. This guy's okay, but he's not really a top 10 unit. He's just kind of like a building block of teams. This guy's fine, but there's just, like, 2 other God Gokus I'd rather run over this guy. This guy's not very good. They're really only on this guy's team. We're kind of waiting for a better setup for them. These guys are okay, but they're waiting for, like, a Zabasu team, essentially. This is a gimmick unit. I don't like them. They need an easy A. This unit's just kind of like a... I mean, if I had to put them somewhere up here, it'd be like... I don't know. Somewhere around here-ish, maybe. Maybe like here. I don't know. But yeah, let me know what you guys think about this top 10. Janemba should be like, I don't know, here, maybe? Here? I don't know. Janemba's somewhere up in this zone. We'll throw him there for now. Yeah, but I'm not going to order any of the rest of these. I mean, if I tried to order all of these, we'd be here all day, so I don't know. But yeah, let me know what you guys think. Do I like that? I don't know. Ignore this. None of this matters down here. This is all just... this is all just nonsense down here. Don't look at any of this. This is what matters. This is the top 10. So let me know what you guys think about this top 10 list right here. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. If you stuck through the entire video, you're a super trooper. And I'll catch you guys next time.